Welcome to Finance Deep Dive. So, we're going to talk about something huge today, something that's really shaking up the US economy, this labor shortage that just won't go away. It's like this giant puzzle, right? Businesses are scrambling, economists are scratching their heads, and today we're going to try and put the pieces together.
I mean, it's the question on everyone's mind. You see help wanted signs literally everywhere, but businesses are saying they can't fill these spots. So, what's the deal? Where did everybody go? In this video, we're going to dig right into that. And I want to be super clear about this right up front. This is not some temporary blip. It's not just a little hangover from the pandemic that's going to disappear on its own. No, what we're looking at here is a fundamental, structural change to the US economy. And trust me, it affects every single one of us. All right, let's get into it. Section 1, America's Missing Workers. The subtitle here is The Mismatch Between Jobs and People. And really, that's the heart of the issue. You've got all these jobs on one side and not enough people to fill them on the other. It's a classic mismatch. And it's kind of weird, right? I mean, it's a total paradox. The economy is chugging along, unemployment is super low. On paper, it should be a great time to hire. But when you actually talk to business owners, from the corner coffee shop to the huge corporations, they're all singing the same tune. We can't find workers. Okay, so to really get a grip on this, we've got to look at what's causing it. Turns out there are 4 key drivers behind this whole thing. Let's walk through each one. All right, driver number 1 is a big one: demographics. You could argue it's the most powerful force of all. We're talking about the fundamental makeup of the US population itself. It's changing, and that's having a massive knock-on effect on who's available to work. And the scale of this, it's just wild. Think about it. For decades, the huge baby boomer generation was the engine of the economy. Well, now they're hitting retirement age, and they're leaving the workforce in massive numbers. We're talking thousands every single day. And the problem is, the generations coming up behind them, Gen X, millennials, they're just not as big. There are fewer of them. This isn't some economic theory, it's just math. And it's creating these huge holes in really important areas like healthcare and transportation. Okay, on to driver number 2, post-pandemic exits. Now, this is more recent, but it's like throwing gasoline on that demographic fire we just talked about. The pandemic completely flipped the script on how people view work, and millions just left. They exited the labor force completely.
And the key thing to get here is that for a lot of people, this wasn't just a temporary break. Millions decided, you know what, I'm retiring early. Others have been dealing with long-term health stuff. And a whole lot of people just had a major rethink about what's important in life. The bottom line is that number we watch, the labor participation rate, the percentage of people who are either working or looking for a job, it still hasn't recovered to where it was headed before the pandemic.
All right, that brings us to driver number 3, skill mismatches. So it's not just a numbers game, it's also about what people can do. There's this growing gap between the skills companies are looking for and the skills people actually have. And this is a huge deal in an economy that's changing so fast. I mean, technology is creating all these jobs in areas like data analysis, software development, advanced manufacturing, but the workforce just hasn't caught up. So you end up with this bizarre situation where you might have, say, unemployed folks with one skill set in one part of the country and a ton of open, high-tech jobs somewhere else that nobody's qualified for. And finally, driver number 4, immigration trends. Look, for a long, long time in the US, immigration was a huge part of the labor supply. It was what helped fill the gaps left by those demographic changes. But things have changed recently. The fact is, immigration has slowed down. That means fewer people of working age have been coming into the country. And that puts a ton of pressure on certain industries that have always relied heavily on that workforce. I'm talking about construction, agriculture, hotels and restaurants, you name it. When that flow of new workers slows down, those shortages we already have, they get a whole lot worse. Okay, so those are the 4 big drivers, but let's talk about the so what. What does this actually mean for the economy? And maybe more importantly, what does it mean for you? Because this isn't some abstract concept. It has a huge ripple effect that you can feel in your wallet, at the grocery store, pretty much everywhere. It's really like a coin with 2 very different sides. On one side, for workers, it's actually pretty good news. When companies are desperate for people, that means higher wages, better benefits. You have a lot more bargaining power. But flip that coin over, and for businesses, it's a massive headache. They're dealing with higher costs, they're being pushed to spend a fortune on automation, and some are even having to put their expansion plans on hold. And this is where it hits home for everyone: inflation. The connection is pretty straightforward. Step 1, companies have to pay more to get workers. Step 2, that makes their costs go up. And step 3, what do? They pass those costs right along to us, the consumers, in the form of higher prices. That's a huge piece of the inflation puzzle we've all been dealing with.
So when you put it all together, the big takeaway is this. We have to stop thinking of this as some temporary problem we can fix. This is the new normal. It's a new economic reality, and we're all going to have to adapt to it. You know, when you hear economists use a term like structural challenge, this is exactly what they're talking about. It means the problem is baked into the system. The causes, our aging population, technology, the way we think about work, they're deep and they're not going away. This isn't a dip that's just going to bounce back next year.
At the end of the day, you can think of the number of workers as a kind of speed limit for the entire economy. A country's economy can really only grow in two ways. You either add more workers, or you get more stuff done with the workers you have, which is just a fancy way of saying productivity. So if you can't add more workers, all the pressure for growth falls on getting more innovative and more productive.
Which leaves us with a huge question, really. Is this new reality going to be a permanent anchor, just dragging down U.S. growth for years to come? Or could it actually be a catalyst? Could it be the push we need to get way more innovative, way more productive, and maybe even stronger in the long run? The answer to that question is really going to write the next chapter for the U.S. economy. And that's our look at the U.S. labor shortage. If you like the content, don't forget to subscribe to Finance Deep Dive. It motivates us to keep posting. Thanks for watching.